Hello, buttercups. Welcome back to my channel. Today's interview is episode number 4, and it's with Brianna. I've known Brianna since 2018, so this is going to be a ride. It's going to be a party, a journey. We might cry. I don't know. We'll just see how it goes. But the question that I always ask a newbie who comes on, which is basically everyone so far, is Brianna, how did we meet? Back in 2018. Yeah, I blinked. Sorry. Go on.
We met in this very dangerous place called the internet, which is where you want to. Well, you never know what's going to happen over there. No, actually, it's funny. I have a lot of like really good friendships that have come from social media. It was Twitter, right? I think it was
Yeah.
Twitter initially. Yeah,
hmm
and I brought you onto my podcast,
hmm
and we were talking about like cancel culture issues and stuff like that. And yeah, I don't remember like what it was that we first bonded over, but I think it had to do with that, right?
It was with Blood Air.
Blood.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I had part of the memory. That's right. It was with Blood Air. That's right.
Yeah. And yeah, that was the thing of, yeah, I don't remember. It
It's a
was a
while
long
ago.
time ago.
I
I was
know.
gonna say something. I'm like, No, I don't remember." But it was like I didn't think that it was warranted. I said something, and you said something. A few other people said something,
Yeah.
and we got dogpiled. And I remember during that time, I just got a bunch of dislikes on like 10 or 15 of my booktube videos in a row,
Mm.
and I was like, coincidence? I don't think so, because it was like a hour or two after, and I
Oh,
just
someone
happened.
went and just like bulk disliked.
Yeah, which did it do anything? No. And then I had a bunch of people unfollow me, and I'm like, uh-huh, yeah, okay, okay, booktube or book Twitter. And that's kind of where it was like, yeah, I don't know if I trust you all, because you say that you're friends, but then you turn on people that
Yeah.
don't think like 100% like you. And I think Francina Simone said she has a whole video on it. 100% agree on everything that she said. Um, but I just remember that it was that because I don't like I I forget how to pronounce that writer's name. Apologies, I'm not even gonna butcher it. But the
I don't even
author,
remember it at all, so I can't help you.
yeah.
Well,
So
this is
the
like left my brain. I'm just like, I don't wanna think about that shit anymore.
Yeah, yeah, the, whole thing was, the controversy was very
Yeah.
American-centric, and, yeah, there are other countries than just the
I
United
I think
States.
we should do a quick rundown for people who don't know what we're talking about. So Blood Air was a young adult novel,
Mhm.
that came out. It was about to come out. I don't know if it got, like, unpublished or what.
Oh, she published it and said, "Yeah, I'm not
Okay.
actually gonna back down on this," and
Oh, yeah, that was pretty
I
good.
yeah, I'm like, "Go,
Yeah,
girl."
there was just some controversy about it relating to, I wanna say it had to do with allegedly with racial issues. So something about how that's what it was slavery. It was the way that slavery was portrayed in this fantasy world, right? And it was American, it was Americans, it was, predominantly like African Americans that were offended because it felt the way that they were looking at just like slavery in the United States. And I don't remember the exact frame, but something about when it was framed that way, they found it offensive. But this was I can't remember where she's from, but she was from somewhere in Asia. I want to say might have even been China. I don't remember if
I
that
think it
was
was,
her
yeah,
background.
China, and
And
that she saw slavery in China.
right, so she was drawing from her actual like
Mhm.
cultural background and experiences with a different form of slavery, and she was addressing that. So she was addressing something completely different. And it was a classic issue of Americans thinking that America is the world and that everything surrounds America, and that our problems are the only problems that exist, and that there aren't problems throughout the world and throughout history that can look different. And so it was one of those kinds of things. But of course, everyone knows how American politics get. Like, if it's
Yeah.
like if you don't agree with people sometimes, then you're like a bigot or whatever. And so whatever, it was just very dumb. There was a lot of the YA publishing space is on Twitter is extremely toxic. There's a
Mhm.
lot of backstabbing. There's a lot of it's insincere. Like I don't think most
Yeah.
people pretending to be outraged at things are actually outraged at things. Like usually it's because someone else tried to cancel them, so now trying to get that person back. It's like stuff like that. It's very petty, very like schoolyard level. So it's funny. Nicole and I are both not on that platform really anymore. Um,
No, I got rid of that in 2020, right before everything went down
yeah.
the world. But yeah, there was I don't see that stuff much anymore other than like random YouTube recommendations, which doesn't all like it doesn't usually happen anymore because I that the algorithm I'm not watching actually
Yeah.
99% of booktubers I like a couple. So it doesn't pop up anyway. So when if someone says, "Oh, do you know about this?" But I'm like, "No." I have like 3 jobs and my husband's deploying and I have things going on,
Things going on, right?
right? I'm a little busy, right? And but I think at least what I've heard, it's kind of died down because people just have left because of whatever. I left before it was cool. No,
Mm,
we left before it was cool, isn't it?
I guess. I don't know if I did. I left a little bit later than you did. Yeah. I was because of a personal tragedy that just disrupted my life
Mhm.
completely, and all of my habits were just thrown out the window. And so I had the choice. I was
Yeah.
choosing, I was intentionally putting habits back into my life, and I put them all back in except for social media because I realized specifically
Mhm.
Twitter and Instagram, my relationship to both those platforms was really unhealthy.
Yeah.
Really negative. Like there was a time when it used to be a lot of positives, like like we met
Mhm.
there. Like I have a lot of friendships that have come out of that. A lot of just things that I've learned, opportunities that have come. But there came a point where that was no longer the case anymore, where it was more negative than positive for me. And so at that point, that was last year, I guess, where I
Oh, yeah.
realized I don't want to get back on. Like, I don't actually want to, and I feel so much better now that I do, now that I'm not
Yeah.
on there anymore. Um, yeah.
Well, it's the like, when I watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix, I was like, "Yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna just take all those apps off." And then that was the for off the phone, and then that the step was, like, I kept seeing people getting, bullied, harassed, doxxed on Twitter and sometimes on Instagram, like, "Why am I here? I'm
Yeah.
not doing this." Like, I have other things going on, and at that point, I had 2 jobs. So I'm like, also stuff going on, like,
Right.
too much energy on social media, and I have I guess you could say YouTube is kind of one social media in some ways if you're a creator, kinda, sorta, and then I have Goodreads and
Mm.
Facebook, but I have a shell of a profile. I just kind of share memes on Facebook. It's like it's
Yeah.
not I don't really have a feed. It's writing and books, which is good. It's not like, "Ooh," like a lot of people's feeds.
Yeah. Yeah, it's there's so many things to say about that. Also, random side note, I feel I have to say this, but just like I said this to you before we started recording. My hair looks bad. That's because I'm in the middle of dyeing it. It's not finished. That's why it's so yellow and gross. Anyway, getting and inconsistent parts. I
It's a
miss.
new trend.
I thought I was gonna be able to finish this before we got on camera, but oh well. It's a new trend. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
But yeah, social media, it's weird because I think what happened might have been a cultural shift too, because I feel like a lot of these writing spaces, because that was what I was originally using both Instagram
Mhm,
and Twitter for. It was for meeting other writers, because before then I didn't really have like I had I had some writer friends, but we weren't really in contact anymore. Like we'd been friends. I had like a writing club that I started when I was a teenager,
mhm,
and we'd all gone our separate ways, and so it was really helpful, like finding all these people online. And it was genuinely, I think, especially Instagram was the impetus for me having a daily writing habit, because before that I
mhm,
didn't have a daily writing habit. And now it isn't really daily, but it's consistent. That's the point. Like before it was like I was writing once a while, once every other week or something like that.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that kind of lifestyle, that kind of habit, that kind of dedication, I guess. Not dedication, but it's another word I'm looking for. I'll just pretend I said it. Like the habit, the
Habit. Yeah.
exactly. And but that was motivating. It was motivating to like take a picture, and it seems kind of shallow, but it was really genuinely helpful to like romanticize the lifestyle of a writer, so that it wasn't just about the end result, getting this book done. It was like, I'm sitting here and, because I'm doing it for Instagram to make it look pretty, I'm, making a nice space. I have some tea or coffee or, a candle or something. But that became a genuine part of my life that like, at first it was just to get a good picture. And now it's like, now I don't do that for a good picture. I do make it a sacred space that is, I want to come back to it. I want to write, I want to do it as often as I can. And I can thank those communities for that. But that was like 2015-ish, 2014, 2015. And then it was around 2016 especially 2017, where those communities did change and they became a lot more toxic. And so now I've left them and I've gotten what the good I could get out of them, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I did it for booktube and writing, so like kind of what I'm already doing, blending the author and the reading as like this is what you know me for. But yeah, I was not into, and I don't like it in person, though I don't get it too much because I guess I've heard that people think that I'm intimidating, so I don't really get people telling me what not to do. But on Twitter, there were a few times where like, oh, don't read this book or else. And I'm like,
yeah.
Or else what? I'd love
Yeah, it makes you want to do it.
Or else what? Like I just tell like what else? What is, because then they're like, oh, I mean, like, but then I'm like, but you just indirectly threaten me. Like, do you read what you're saying? Do you read it out loud and then before you hit send? Because that's technically an indirect threat. But they're not thinking about that. And then it sometimes does turn it like into a threat when, they're downvoting all your videos in like succession or
because there are
bullying,
things you can
harassing, all
do.
that stuff. Yeah, there is stuff that you can do. So watch before you hit send, because there are going to be, and I'm sure there were people they got way more aggressive when they were being told what and what not to read, and they didn't like that. But don't say that, because you're going to run up to some person that really does mean it, and then they're going to harass you even worse than you saying don't read or else, because that is, like I said, it's an indirect threat. And yeah, some people don't like that. They're gonna one up you, or like they'll 10 times up you, and then you're like, oh shit, and then you're like, delete the but it's too late. That's I don't think people think things through on Twitter because it's so fast. And I don't think people realize, but well, recently it was changed. For a very long time, up to like maybe a month ago, everything was public. You could search everything and it would just pop up. Whereas now you have to have a profile. They'll block, what you can see. And it was the same thing for Facebook and Instagram. If you didn't have an Instagram or a Facebook account, then you couldn't view anything. It would make me try to sign in. But for Twitter, for a long time, didn't do that. You could just view everything, everything, which is a bit excessive. But yeah, they changed that like a month or two ago.
So it's no longer a fully public platform, huh?
Yeah, which that they can have fun up there, but I don't know if that will make it worse or better, because it was already really bad. But people, I don't think, were realizing everything was public. You could just search someone's, like if you had your first and last name, Yeah, type that in Twitter. Everything.
Yeah. Eh, I'm at the point where I'm just like, I'm watching it's funny because it's, the whole Elon Musk takeover stuff has happened, like, pretty much around the time that I stopped using it. I guess it was a little bit after. And so I'm just kinda watching, not even watching, I'm just sort of glancing at it occasionally from a distance and laughing because I don't care anymore. Um, so it's just like, "Cool, y'all can deal with that. I'll
Yeah,
just
have
be over here living my
fun.
life, actually getting work done," and
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or like people are trying to find other social media. And I'm like,
Mhm.
how about you read or you write? I don't know. Or go out to a movie with friends. Like, do you need to be on there? Did you watch The Social Dilemma? I think you should. Like, it's
Yeah, and
not healthy for you. And yeah,
mhm.
you can see people like like they're the beginning of the social media, and then it's just a down, and they're not the same 9 times out of 10, unless you do like really strict stuff, like you don't have Twitter at all on your phone or Instagram on your phone, and it's really um you really want to because everyone has it, and you get those dopamine hits all the time, so
Mhm.
you want to, but then you're like, logic. They that one person out of 10 can handle it, but we as humans just love that dopamine hits.
It's designed to exploit that, obviously, so,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
it's like, "You which is gonna win?" Classic meme
Yeah.
format, "You or this whole entire team of people
Yeah.
who spend their careers figuring out how to manipulate you and how to use your human nature against you. Like, most
Mhm.
likely their system is going to win. They have all the advantage. So just don't play the game if you can help it. And the thing
Yeah.
is, too, is like, I think people like us, like you and I are both authors, we're both independent authors. There's this sort of it's a belief, but it's a false belief that you need to be on these platforms in order to grow your audience and things like that. And like, there can be benefits to that. Like, there absolutely can be, but you have to do the, advantages, disadvantages, kind of a checklist. Like, if you are, it has to be something that's really low effort and it's not being a drain on your creativity and your ability to get
Mm,
work done. If you're able to do that, if you're able to have like a social platform that doesn't detract from that and you're not getting sucked into all the drama and stuff, then that can be fine. But it has to be so minimal effort because the benefits of social media are actually incredibly small. You're gonna
yeah.
have a lot more success trying to like grow a newsletter, for example, which I recently
Mhm.
relaunched mine and I've been doing that.
Yeah.
I'm putting effort into that, into having that go out every month instead of trying to update people on anything any other way.
Mhm.
Because it feels like it's better. It's also it's helpful to just have one thing too. The
Yeah.
context, which can be exhausting. Of like, I used to be always thinking about what was I going to post on Instagram, what was I gonna tweet, and I was planning them out in advance and scheduling them, trying to be active, and it's just like, or I could just write one newsletter one time.
Yeah.
That's so much better, and the rewards of that are higher. Like, you get a lot more value in something like that. So yeah,
Yeah, I have the newsletter and also the Amazon ads,
yeah,
which,
that's the way to go.
yeah, and then just, basic stuff. Like, I'm going with, like, the Goodreads, Facebook, YouTube, but mainly
Hmm.
YouTube, and Goodreads and Facebook, just, like, whatever. Um, because if you're, like, the ideal reader, the super fan, you want something else, well, then you can find me on YouTube, and, oh, look, you can see and hear me. Oh my god.
I'm
So
re-
that's like yeah, and so it's just like, okay, that's what a lot of people want. They wanna see and hear you and have and hear, what are you reading or what's your, upcoming release or whatever, doing cute book tags. Like, that makes way more sense, and it's on my time. Like, if I have the energy to do all that, then it's going up
Mhm.
versus, like, on other platforms, you really have to, like, post a lot, And I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's
No.
it's constant. You have to be thinking ahead, and yeah, and that was a major negative for me. Was it was a significant, I mean, significant reduction in my daily like creative abilities. Like a lot of it was going towards social media at the point where it was getting really unhealthy. Like I was, instead of like there, like too much of my brain space was being devoted to that. And I was like, I want 100% of my free brain space to go towards the high value things and to go towards actually telling stories and thinking about, I don't want to be thinking about my next Instagram post. I want to be thinking about the next scene that I'm working on, like that should be,
Yeah.
I want as much free headspace to be able to go to that as possible. So,
Yeah. And also, like, me joining Brian Cohen's ad school has been really helpful.
doing what now?
Brian Cohen's ad school. I've
Oh,
been there for almost a year. And yeah, it's all about writing and marketing and all that stuff.
mm,
And that's what's helping me with actually everything, not just Amazon ads. They were called Amazon Ad School, but you can't just do Amazon ads. It's like the whole package. So then they just cut out Amazon, and so ad school. And they really do the motto is, what can you do and what do you want to do and what do you need to do?
mhm.
Like those are different things. Like, okay, so you want to post on Instagram 5 times a day, every single day. Is that going to happen? No. Like, and do you need to do that? You feel like you need to do it, but you don't actually need to do it. That's an expectation from like somewhere out there and whatever internet saying that you have to. No, you don't. Because there are a lot of very successful writers, fiction and nonfiction, in that group that barely have a social media presence or
Mhm.
absolutely nothing other than a newsletter, which
Yeah.
you could argue if that's social media or not. But like, you really don't need it. And you also don't need to have a huge networking group of writers, especially if they're in way different genres. Like I do see a lot of not even just on Twitter anymore, but like just in general, in person as well, and but especially online, where they will have just a mix match of different genres, and they're all buying each other's books, and then they get
Yeah.
their readers to read it. But it's like, one, you're confusing the Amazon algorithm. When you have a sci-fi reader or
Mm.
readers and an author reading a horror novel, that's going to get a little confusing. And then there's also Amazon is slick, and it's creepy in a way that it's going to notice certain trends, and then they might block you from even leaving reviews because you bought too many of this. Like it's like a circle,
It
and I'm
can
like,
tell you're just friends helping each other out. Yeah.
yeah.
Pretty sophisticated.
And yeah, it's really smart in a creepy way, like I said.
Mhm.
And so you have to be really careful about that.
Yeah.
And it also, what is kind of hard for some writers is that not everyone's going to like your book or your genre.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, and
Imagine
this
that,
wasn't,
out of the
yeah.
1,000,000,000 people
Yeah.
on this planet, some of them
Yeah.
are not gonna be interested.
Yeah,
Wow.
and so, like, like, trying to branch into other genres just to get, like, one person to read your book is not
Yeah.
gonna it's not gonna work. Like
No, 'cause they're
like,
not gonna.
okay, yeah, like, okay, you write paranormal romance, and you're befriending, like, a bunch of horror writers. The crossover is not there.
Yeah.
Like, and
There
then they're
may
like,
be
"Oh,
individual
I'm"
people who read
yeah.
genres, but in terms of you thinking as a marketer, like, that's not efficient. You have to, like, you need to be really, really narrow in what you're targeting. Um,
Yeah. And like you can obviously be friends with whoever, but then I'm seeing like a lot of, well, even traditionally published, but a lot of indies that are trying to like grab other people's readers and be like, they're mine. And like, stop it. Like, it's a little weird when you do that, a little predatory in a way. because you're not actually making, like, some of them are friends with them, right? But then, like, read my book, read my book, read my book, sign up for my newsletter, do all this stuff, and but it's not for them. So then you have that weird friendship where it gets a little awkward, and I've seen, like, writing circles just kinda drift away from each other because there's one or more multiple, people in the writing group that are like, well, you have to read my paranormal romance, or you have to read my epic fantasy of 250,000 words, even though you write Regency romance and it's really like max 65,000 words. Like, you can't, it's not gonna work. Like, I have, just like you have a lot of writer friends that do different genres,
Mhm.
but when you're trying to, like, you're making interesting friendships for marketing is where it's like, I don't know about that one. I don't know. Seems a little weird to me, especially forcing people to, like, working you're kind of like worming or working your way into someone that is not going to read your genre ever and kind of
Mhm.
guilt trip them. Do
That's
you really need that buy? I don't think you do.
Yeah, you gotta be, strategic and efficient with your time and thinking about what's gonna give you the most value. That's I feel like not just in terms of marketing, but that's a good way to approach anything that's limited. You have limited
Mhm.
time, you have limited resources. It's like you gotta be selective in what you're doing. Um, it's kind of a general life principle, to be honest. I feel like I could apply that to a lot of things, like, do the things that are most meaningful to you, do the things that are
Mhm.
most beneficial, and
And don't use people for money.
yeah,
What I can't
that
say.
should go without saying, but apparently not.
Well, apparently not. No, no. Yeah, unfortunately. But I think also writers have to remember that, like, who's your ideal reader, and you want the ideal reader. And yes, it is writers sometimes, but, like, going off of, like, Facebook ads or Amazon ads, you have to get, like, new people in, not just
Yeah,
a
and you reach
circle of small, because then you're not really gonna
this
get
is
much.
goes back to the social media thing is that a lot of people, a lot of writers, being really specific, will use social media, in the ways that, like I was describing at the beginning,
Mhm,
it can be very beneficial to make friends with other writers because they can help encourage you. You can help teach each other things. You grow together, etc. You support each other, that kind of stuff. But those people are not your audience, and so that's important to
mhm.
realize that, like, if you're using social media and you're just like writing, you're putting a lot of writing tips. It's like, well, that's cool. You'll attract friends, you'll attract other writers, but you gotta recognize that you shouldn't go and then try to, like, sell it to them. Like, you could, but, like, that's not a good long-term strategy. Long-term strategies, you need to find readers, people that are gonna read your book, and they may not be writers. Like, imagine that. There's a whole world out there of people who read
Yeah.
books but don't write them. It's a much bigger, and I think that's an easy trap to get into because writing is like writing groups, whatever, that's like pretty strong, online communities. There aren't really like and then it's in like reader groups, if to the extent that they exist, it's different. It's kind of a different, like you have, like, I guess, like booktube and bookstagram would be examples of that. There's going
Mhm.
to be crossover, but they're like, they are two different things, and the it gets weird. Like, if you try to, like, merge them in unnatural ways.
Mhm.
So, ultimately, yeah, if you're a writer, if you're a independent writer like you or I, you're trying to get the audience yourself. You're not traditionally published, and with a traditional publisher does it for you. So that's not, like, completely true.
Yeah.
But
They want you on Book Talk now. Get
huh,
on Book Talk. The trad publishers are like, "Get on Book Talk." And if someone's like, I don't really like TikTok," they're like, "Find another way to market because whatever." There's a lot of problems nowadays because, well, Colleen Hoover just hit the sweet spot with TikTok, specifically Book Talk, and now there's a little bit of a trend, as I've heard with trad published authors that I know, where the marketing is now being a little bit more placed on the authors, and it's
Mhm.
mainly book talk. And it's like,
Oh,
yeah, but what if someone doesn't want to be on TikTok because of all the reasons? Like, I'm
right.
not on there. I'm not going to ever be on there. But
Right.
you saw Colleen Hoover, which now she's her own thing. She can do whatever she wants and it's gonna sell.
Mhm.
That's not everyone. That's like not 99% of the people. Like Stephen King can do whatever he wants, Nora
Mhm.
Roberts can do whatever she wants, like Anne Rice could do whatever she. There was just like that 1% that can do whatever, but you don't base everything else off that 1%. But
Yeah.
they're trying really hard with that book talk because it can launch a huge career like Colleen Hoover, but that's one person. Like, little awkward for the trad publishers or the trad writers right now that are coming up who
Mhm.
don't want to be on TikTok. And they're like, I don't know about Twitter anymore, or Instagram, because mental health reasons, and also I need to write. But the publishers are like, well, you need to be on there. Like, okay, but like other ways, also, I'm signed with you. Aren't you supposed to do stuff? I don't know, social media.
I don't know what I would do about that because it's definitely like after I finish the next I have one book. You're like on track to do this well because you're producing lots of them. I have one self-published book and I'm going to um, get the sequel out for that. But after that, I'm probably going to at least attempt the
Mhm,
traditional publishing route and then kind of use self-publishing as my backup. If there's a story I really want to write and no one's interested, I'll just, put it out there myself. That's kind of my attitude right now. But
mhm,
I don't know what I would do if I got to that position. Like, I'd be like, no, I'm not gonna do that, and that could be difficult because I'm not willing. Like, that's kind of a hard line for me now. Like, this was
yeah.
a huge improvement to my mental health, a huge improvement to my productivity, a huge improvement to my creativity was getting off of these platforms. So
Mhm.
I'm not going to go back. There are other ways to market and better ways to market. So no, thank you.
Well, aren't you doing screenplays, not actually like books, or is it a bunch of stuff that I can't keep up with because, my mind?
I'm doing a lot of stuff, but it's basically the short version is that I'm a writer director, and I've shifted my focus in the past year to working on my writer director portfolio. Like my ultimate goal is to have both. They're both really weird careers, and they
Mhm,
complement each other. I know someone who's done that. He's a screenwriter and producer, and he's also published a couple novels, and that has helped him stay afloat because it's like
mhm.
if you're a director, you might, people people that are on the outside of filmmaking, like, look at some of the things that happen, like, "Wow, they get paid all this money," and it's like, "Yeah, you might get paid all this money for this one project, and then you don't work for 5 years while you're trying to get a bunch of other things made." So
Yeah.
really, really difficult industry, and so I like doing both of those things, so I'm just that's what I'm doing. I'm just gonna go after both and you know, my ultimate ideal world that I want to be at is one where I'm producing novels and also directing movies and kind of got both of those going on.
Mhm,
So right now I am building my portfolio to pursue representation. It's specifically on film. So I have two feature screenplays I'm working on. I've got them right here. I'll show you.
Oh, yeah.
I always print everything out. These are my first drafts of both of them.
Oh, yeah,
But
chunky.
yeah, one of them's chunkier than the other. um, yeah, and so working on that, those are both they've both been going through various cycles of editing and feedback and whatnot. And then also, I need to have like a really good short film to show my directing abilities. So been doing different practice projects,
Mhm.
and I have the script that I want to do for like my passion project short film, but I'm not ready for it yet. I'm like, no, not ready yet. I need to practice to various things. I did a project this summer, and I'm not totally happy with it. We'll see
Oh.
when I finish editing it. We'll see. I might do some pickup shots that might help improve. There's some parts like, I should have done that, and that was a good learning experience. But I'm gonna direct something else for a friend that I met recently. I'm directing something he's making. So
Mm.
just trying to get as much practice as I can. But then, yeah. So that's been my thing lately. Once I have those three things in place, or at least if I'm in a good stopping point with one of those, like if they're all at a point where I can't work on them because other people are giving feedback or something, then I will return to
Mhm.
the sequel to City of Reckoning.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But is it like, is there a film, um, not culture, whatever it's called, where you are? 'Cause it's pretty limiting, isn't it? Like LA, New York
Oh yeah.
City, Miami, maybe that's or DC, and I think that's all I can think of where like you could make it. Of course, LA, but do you want to go? No, I'm not going there.
Oh,
So like
I
the other
have to
places.
go. No, I have to. No, that's
Oh,
the
you
plan.
do?
I have to, yeah. So, but I want to get these things together before I go.
Mm,
Maybe we'll see. I'll see how long it takes. The current plan is if I'm ready, it will be my current lease when it ends. Is the plan to move. I've been fighting this for years, and yeah,
oh.
I've I have to do it. That's where it's happening. It's that or New
Mhm.
York City, but New York City is I'm never going back to the East Coast. And also, the
Yep.
kinds of stuff I like to do, which is genre stuff, most of that's more LA.
Oh.
Most of it.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's why I
So is
gotta get.
that so you go to like are you doing like a school or internship? I don't think you can
Um
just walk in and be like, "Here I am." Or maybe you can, I don't know.
filmmaking is really complicated. It's
Yeah.
incredibly difficult industry to break into, not just because it's competitive like any industry, but because there's no set path. Like when you think about like
Mhm.
publishing, it's a little bit more simple and straightforward. It's still just as hard, but it's just like, well, you know what you got to do. You have like if you wanted to go traditional publishing, like you need to have a good manuscript, and nice and polished, and then you need to get an agent that likes that, and then they will, pitch this to different publishers, and then you'll get your first one eventually, hopefully. And then you just keep writing more and they'll approve them or not and whatever. And then with self-publishing, it's like, you do all this work on the back end of, you get the editing done and all this stuff and the cover, and then you put it out there and you do all this marketing and you keep doing that and you got to do it frequently. And
Mhm.
so there's like a set path. Like there's, what to do, even though those steps are not easy. It's not like that with filmmaking. There is no set path. Everyone that breaks in different ways. It's like
Yeah. Mhm.
it's chaotic. But yes, film school may be on the table. Very much not necessary to get into the industry. It's more of a networking opportunity. People usually meet people in film school that they work with, so that
Oh, yeah.
makes it appealing to me. If I do go, it would only be there are only two schools I would go to, and they're like, and I would have to be good enough already to actually get accepted into those, which is
Oh.
UCLA or AFI, and they're both in LA.
Mhm.
They're like the Harvards of film school of film. So
Yeah.
would be yeah, I would if I don't get into those, I wouldn't I would just keep making films. It's like so there's a similar thing, which is that you need to get an agent and
Oh.
a manager. So that's kind of similar to traditional publishing. And so that's what I'm doing. Basically, the equivalent of getting your manuscript to get an agent. That's what I'm doing.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm having these two screenplays. That's their main purpose is just to one of them is to show what the kind of thing I want to make one day. It's like a big epic fantasy thing. It's an
Mhm.
action picture script. It's more than 2 hours long. The other one is like this is something that I could get done soon that I could convince people, to actually fund right now.
Yeah.
And it's like a horror thing, so it's like a 90-minute um, horror story. And most of the short films I'm working on are horror related. So I'm trying to like show, oh, I can do this thing. That's the strategy anyway.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so it's difficult and it's complicated but yeah, but that's for me as a writer director, that's basically it's not really the path, that's the broad strategy. But then how do I get the agent? There's a million ways that could happen.
Mhm.
Just gonna try everything until something works.
Yeah. Are you going with people? Like you have like a producer and like a hairstylist or something like that? We're going in a group and we're gonna rent a apartment or something, or is it like we're going and it's gonna well that's like a lot of people have like a yeah, we're going and we kind of planned it. or are you like really planning it out because it is expensive?
Um, it's complicated. So I do have someone that Heath, you know Heath.
Uh,
He might come with me. It all depends on it's kind of the practical back end of making sure both of
yeah.
us, getting work that we can have while we're there and
Oh yeah.
saving up enough. It's all the like financial job practicality stuff that will determine ultimately when each of us goes, and hopefully it'll align that we can go at the same time. But yeah, it's a complicating factor because with LA, it's like really expensive there.
Mm,
And if you're gonna get a job there, like you kind of have to already be there to get jobs because they're so competitive. They don't want to hire you if you're out of state coming in. And so it's like
yeah.
it's yeah. So ideally I would like to have something that is remote, which I do not currently have.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, so I can just take it with me. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, did you well, okay, so I saw that you read what's his name? John Truby? And I the that screenwriter. See, this is not scripted. I don't remember
You're
the
good.
title. And
That name is so familiar. Oh, John Truby. Oh, it's right here.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
this guy.
Yeah, you didn't know it was right there, Brianna.
I have my bookshelf. You are actually not sitting on a desk. You, as in the computer, is a nice little secret, as you're actually sitting on a low bookshelf. So that's why I can
Oh.
bring books out.
Yeah, so I read just recently Take Off Your Pants by Libby Hawker because I am, well, as of still right now, hopefully, maybe not in the future when this comes out, but still struggling with the mystery, which is you gotta have a mystery that makes sense, right?
What?
I have to have like the Obsidian Murders is part of a book series that's a
Oh,
mystery, and the
okay.
mystery has to make sense, right?
Right.
So I was like, I think I need a plot a little bit because I'm a pantser, and hers was her whole thing is I am naturally a pantser, but it took me 3 years to write this one book, right? And
Hmm.
you can't you can't really do that. I mean, unless you kind of like it's as a hobby and you're not expecting
Mhm.
like a lot from the book, or you're like, well,
Yeah.
even there's just, I think with technology has made writing easier, as in you can produce more because you can connect with people easily. um, you can find a cover artist fairly fast. You can find editor fairly fast, and like you can watch YouTube tutorials on how to do Amazon ads and how to put your book up on Amazon, like all that stuff. Plus, Amazon's free, so all that technology is making things go faster. So,
Mhm.
based on your goals, you have to think, okay, so is it for a hobby? Am I just publishing this for a very niche market like Irish archaeology, and I'm an archaeologist that specializes in X amount, pick a time of Irish culture, and that's completely niche, but you could make a big wave in that field, but
Yeah.
you're not making a wave anywhere else because it's extremely niche. Like, what are your goals and what do you want? And I was thinking, you know what, for this urban fantasy, having a fantastic time. I can write like 15, 20 books in this world and just branch off. But I can't, at least for this mystery
Mhm.
series, I can't pants it because the mystery needs to make sense. Like, and I think I did a great job with Obsidian Murders because it took me a while. But I like now that book, the first book is out, it's like, well, I can't spend 5 years on it off and on. It
Mhm.
was off and on because I had the other three standalones. And then A Patriot's Tale took 15 years off and on because I wasn't focused.
Yeah.
I was doing other things, right? Um, and then I started The Two Foxes at, like, 17 and then just stopped for years,
Mm,
but that took about 2 years to finish when I was really focused, and then Danny's Curse was started at, like, 16 or 17, stopped for a bunch of years because shit was hitting the fan, and then during COVID, I actually wrote it in 6 months.
mm.
And it was pretty clean, but I think it was because I already had, like, 2 books under my belt and 4 chat books, so things were, it
Try to
made
get
more sense.
easier maybe?
Yeah, it got a little easier, but, and it was also during COVID, like, I don't have a job, so
You had more time.
things changed a bit during COVID as well, like, when people were home, they didn't have anything else to do, so they produced, like, within, like, that 2.5 year, or maybe 3 years, depending where you are, um, like, bunch of books. But then now it's, do you keep up that momentum? Because
Mm.
now you're back at work. Or did you manage to, do, like, a full-time job with it because you produce so much and it's, it's good quality, whatever?
Mm.
Um, yeah, things got a little wonky with that, situation for the publishing world because people that started during COVID and wrote a bunch because they really didn't have anything else to do or maybe, like, no choice, so they're like, "Okay, well, let's start this, and I can do Amazon for free," and all this stuff, and it was a um, huge arc in their royalties, and I'm seeing, well,
Mm.
we're hearing a lot about it in the indie world where it's declining because people are actually, like, going out and like, the
Are
summer
we?
slump. Yeah, the
Yeah.
summer slump has happened, and then, like, the people that started writing during COVID, like, "Oh my god. Oh my god, stop it. What was going?" And everyone, like, they're like, "It's a summer slump. People are at the beach. Stop it." Like, just take a breath. This is normal. Like, it wasn't normal for you and for, like, those, 2.5, 3 years, but yes, people are now at the beach, they're at Las Vegas, they're in Santorini, like, things are a little different now. And, so you have, like, also, like, a recalibrate, like, what are we doing? I don't know. What are readers doing? A little bit hard to figure out. But I know for a fact I could, like, since the mystery books are, like, maybe, and this is pushing it, where you're like, probably not, like, 60,000 words. It's usually, like, 50,000 words,
Mhm.
which I can produce, but I'm stuck right now in the middle. We're like,
Mm.
"So where are we going with this? Damn it." And I have 22,000 words. We're like, "Well, okay, damn it." Might need to, plot out the middle at least, because I know, like, I have 22,000 words. I know the ending.
Mhm. You know where you're going.
What's going on in the middle? Shit.
It's
I might
funny,
have to plot.
I've forgotten about the whole pantser versus plotter dichotomy because in script writing, that does not exist. There
Yeah.
is no such thing. You plot, period, because you have a
Mhm.
very short amount of period of time to tell your story, and it's all very it has to be structured. I mean, obviously, there are people out there that break the rules and, like, go and
Yeah.
do their own thing, but you have to know the rules, as they say, you have to know the rules in order to break them. Quentin Tarantino is a famous example, obviously, because but he was, he knows story, and so he changes and he diverts very intentionally. But
Mhm.
he definitely I read one of his screenplays recently, and I'm like, the audacity of this man. Like, he doesn't write screenplays normally. He does his own thing. But you can get away with that when it takes quite a lot of skill to get away with that.
Yeah.
And so the vast, vast, vast majority of screenplays are it's very structured. And I've come to really enjoy that. I used to struggle a lot more with plot. I mean, plot has always been a weakness for me. It still is. It's still
Mhm.
a part that I have to work the hardest at. But, like, studying screenplay structure is really, really helpful. And I studied more of, like, the hero's journey and stuff like that.
Mhm.
That only works for certain kinds of stories, but um, and it'll be interesting to come back to the sequel. I already have rethought how I'm going to structure the sequel based on some of the stuff that I've learned as a screenwriter because it's like
Mhm.
it's different stuff, and not all of it applies. You don't want to write a book like a screenplay because it's a
Yeah.
book. It's not a movie.
Yeah.
I think that's a mistake when people try to make them the same thing. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a funny thing to remember. Like, oh yeah, there's an interesting book on this that's related to this that I'm curious to know if you've read it or not. It's From Where You Dream. Have you ever heard of this?
No. I'm just now getting into craft, whatever, books because I'm like, this damn middle. What am I doing? And I'm like, I can't wait years to fix the middle when I have the ending. But what's in here? I'm annoyed at myself
I
and my
want to talk
brain.
about middle a second after I finish this other thought. But there is this book that it was recommended by someone on Heath's live stream, and Heath, Doug, and I are all reading it, and we're going to discuss it allegedly at some point. But
Mhm,
I'm very strongly disliking this book, and I think it's because it's written From Where You Dream is essentially kind of like this I don't know if it's anti-structure per se, but it's like it's almost like anti-strategy. He's very much about like just writing from your intuition and not using your brain like at all. And but what you realize is that he's writing specifically to not just to fiction writers, but specifically, very, very specifically, literary fiction writers. And so
mhm,
it's like, oh, okay, well, there are different rules. Like there's different expectations for like a work of literary fiction as opposed to like a book of historical fantasy or even like historical fiction, or I guess some historical fiction is literary fiction, but there's a difference. Like the
mhm.
genre stuff, science fiction, horror, whatever, it has a different goal and different rules. And but I don't know, but there's still a lot of value in making sure you don't disconnect from your intuition and from your motive. Like some you can get that's my feelings that you can get too far into either end
Yeah.
of like being all just in your brain, like over structuring things, and then you make something
Mhm.
soulless, versus like when it's just all this self-expression, and then it's like I don't know. Maybe I'm just because I'm not an artsy literary person that I distrust that. Maybe that is fine, but um, I think it maybe reaches less people. I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely depends on what you're going uh, for with your
Mhm.
writing goals and stuff, but also just like um, it took 15 years to write up the A Patriot's Tale. Really, like that's just not gonna happen for me anymore. I started at 12. Like, okay, it's not the same book. I'm
Right.
just let everyone out there. My published book is not the same as when I
Yeah, I
started at
started
12. I'm gonna tell
I
you.
started building the fantasy world that became the book that I published when I was, like, 11, 12, and it's not the same fantasy world at all, and some of the characters that I created then have survived. But
Yeah,
very
so we're just
I
saying
understand.
it's not that. Yeah,
Right.
but, like, it can't like, I don't have the time or the patience or the energy for my brain to do that nonsense. I'm like, "Come on now, I'm 30. What do we I'm
There's
not going
only
to
so
finish
many
a book."
decades you can live, right?
I know, like, get it together. I'm not young anymore. No, I am young, but,
Get those books out there.
yeah. I'm like, I have too much, and here I have too many thoughts like that it needs to go. And my brain's like, ooh, shiny object. I'm like, focus. I'm like, I'm not on Adderall. I don't want to be on Adderall with the ADD, but I'm like, get it together, Nicole.
Mm,
Get it together. And I'm like, okay, well, is plotting going to work? And the Libby Hawker one is actually really basic. You're just writing out like with one or two sentences. Um, I haven't memorized the thing, so I don't even know. But I have a booktube.
mm,
Actually, no, it's not technically author tube. It's both because I'm great at marketing myself. It's a book author tube video discussion thing where I naturally do the first part, which is very basic, naturally, where
mhm,
it's just like theme, ally, antagonist, what are the goals?
mhm.
Like that thing. I just didn't write it down, but I'm now writing it down and it's like, ooh, I'm so smart. Look at me go. But the meat of it, I'm like, oh, okay. But I might have to do the meat of it, where it's like um, one or two sentences, no dialogue or anything like that. But you're just kind of like starting from opening scene, going down, and you can do a lot of goal changes and antagonist attacks, or multiple battles, or your ally helps you, or something's gets in the way of the hero. You can do a lot of that in the, the middle, but then you have the opening scene, and what's the flaw, and how are you going to fix the flaw, and then all this in the meat in the middle, and then you have like the final battle, the death, which is you could kill them off. I don't know, but it's usually like a rebirth, or oh, I've figured out my flaw and I'm good to go, and then like the ending scene to wrap it all up. Like I think that's I was looking at it and I'm like, that's not horrible. Because I can do the first part because I have 22,000 words. I just need to, and I actually have the ending too. It's like, I don't know what's up with the middle.
I do wonder if because you're saying it's structurally a mystery, right? That it's a
Yeah,
mystery
and it
story.
has to make sense. Yeah.
I do wonder if mystery, if that kind of, because what you just described is a very standard, like, uh, you know, Hero with a Thousand Faces esque, um,
Yeah.
um, very cinematic story structure, which is great and works in a lot of cases. But I do wonder if mystery has other rules. That'd be an interesting thing to look into. There's another book, I
Yeah.
haven't read it yet. This is next, but another John Truby one that just came out.
Is there a mystery in there?
It should be.
I'm like,
He's
because
a detective.
well, mine's detective agency.
Yeah, so I'm really
That's probably
intrigued because I know he talks a little bit about,
Mm,
like, the structure of different ones. Like, I opened this up and I think I read just one chapter of, like, let me read what it says for horror and for fantasy, or I
yeah,
just skim through it. But that might be an interesting one to look into too, because, like, I don't know, I really liked The Anatomy of Story, because he doesn't really do that kind of structure, that kind of simplistic. Well, I guess he does some of those things, but
yeah,
his stuff is a lot more broad. I think it tends to apply to a lot more kinds of stories, which
yeah.
is why I like the way he thinks.
Because
Um,
because
yeah,
Libby mentioned the hero's journey a lot. I'm like, okay, yeah, I got it. Though, yeah, it might not work
yeah, I
100%
might,
with mystery.
it may or may not, but there is. So I wanted to say something about the the soggy middle syndrome, something that
Mm,
has helped me. It may or may not help you. But it's this very simple concept that has now, like, changed how I think about stories, especially shorter ones like screenplays. So we're all familiar with, like, the three act structure or whatever. But the problem
mhm,
with thinking about it as three acts is that you get stuck. You're like, okay, I've got the beginning. I'm setting up the characters, what their needs and wants are, etc. And then inciting incident, whatever. I know what the last act is. 'Cause we've got our climactic, our sequence that leads to the climax, and then the denouement, all that stuff. All that's very intuitive. We all just kind of naturally, I think, know how to do that. But the middle is like, well, what the hell do you do? That's like half of the story.
mhm,
So it's much easier to not think about it, for me anyway, to think about it as three acts, to think about it as four. And if you realize that there are four parts that are equidistant, or not equal, yeah, equal length.
mhm,
If you divide the second act into two equal parts separated by a midpoint, it becomes a
mhm,
lot easier. If you think about, so the first half of the second act would be like a lot of things are going well. So you're introducing whatever new world the character is in. And what else is happening? A lot of people call this like the fun and game section.
oh,
And
yeah, mhm,
yeah, and then the midpoint would be like, the midpoint could be a lot of things, I guess. It could be like, a change in plans, it could be a false defeat, it could whatever, something major shifts. And then your second half of that is just everything getting worse. So no, things are getting
yeah,
well, and they're getting worse,
mhm,
and the stakes are getting higher. Everything that could go wrong goes wrong.
mhm,
And then and yeah, until we get to now we've got some breakthrough, or we're at the lowest point before that, where now it's like, and then we figure out how we're going to go to the end. Again, this may be more hero's journey-esque, so it may or may not apply to a story like yours. I don't really know much about mysteries, but
yeah,
that economy was so, like, eye-opening to me about, like, oh, like, if I'm splitting that into two parts, it makes it a lot more like I instantly knew how to plot, and where to put certain events. Because before I would just be like, I have no fucking clue what to do in the middle. I'm just
yeah,
like, um,
yeah,
what do you think about that?
yeah. Well, also, I think it could just be that I have too much going on. So
Yeah.
it's like stress related, and then also the ADD thing, where
Mhm.
like I just published Obsidian Murders, 3 jobs, husband deploying.
Mm.
How am I going to deal with that? Because we're coming up close.
Yeah.
And then, oh, I'm also stressing that I'm at 22,000 words, and I'm not fast enough, or like I'm not figuring out much, because there are a lot of pantsers that it doesn't take years. It might take like 6 months to a year, but it's not taking years. you know? Um, but then, like, I was talking to Thomas in the other interview, and he's like, you're not like a complete pantser, because you know the beginning, and you know
Mm.
all of the you can have huge conversations about Tessa and Bloodsworth and all these people, and then you also know the beginning or the end.
Mm.
So you just need to, like, I think he suggested, like, write, or someone suggested. I'm getting things a little blurry today. Someone suggested writing the end,
Mm.
so it's for sure, especially because it's a mystery, it's for sure going to end like that because it's already in your head. Write it down and
Hmm.
then fill in the middle and see if that works, which I might have to do
Yeah, that could work
that.
too. Figure out how to get from here to here.
Yeah, but yeah, like, it's hard to find craft books on specific things other than romance, fantasy, horror, and sci-fi, like the top four. But then
Yeah,
what's the top five? What's the fifth most popular genre?
we said romance,
I
science
thought it
fiction.
would be a mystery, but okay,
It
I guess
might
not.
be. Oh, I would say maybe like I guess just like general thriller, like crime thriller.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
That would be the other
yeah.
one.
Mhm.
That's actually probably higher than
Yeah.
sci-fi and fantasy.
Yeah, because you always see that stuff in TV and movies. Yeah.
Mm. Like romance, it'd probably be like romance and then like thrillers. That's what I would think. I don't know. We
Mhm.
could Google this and find out for sure. That'd be my
What's the
guess.
5 genres? Well, I'm pretty sure romance is like 2 billion annually now.
Yeah,
Probably number
doesn't
one.
surprise me.
And then whatever in the others, whichever ones that we said in the 2, 4, 5.
Yeah, because romance is predominantly, read by women, and there are more women reading books than men, and more women buying things than men. So you saw all these things like, yep, so that would be the one. That's what you would expect. It's
Oh,
also
yeah.
kind of a form of fantasy, like wish fulfillment and stuff like that. Um, it's happy. People like to feel good.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm. Yeah, well, with Emma Bennett, who's the episode 2, because she writes romance, and there's this whole thing going on, and it's not. I think it's been going on for quite some time, not just a online thing. Because I hear it often in person, where romance can't ever be artistic. It can't be an product, or it can't be art. And I'm like, why? So now there's stuff that is smut and erotica and trashy, and that's fine. But like, saying it can never be is weird to me.
some people say that about all genre forms. That book I was
Yeah.
From Where You Dream, he just differentiates between what he calls art and then what he calls like, oh, what was it? Like entertainment genre fiction. And I'm like, well, excuse you.
Yeah.
Like,
There's definitely, like, I know there are quite like, there, I think there's different, at least I've noticed online. It's like art, entertainment, and activism. And you can have like kind of mix and match at times, but yeah, I think like a lot of people shit all over the entertainment aspect, which I guess you would say would be like some romance, like women's fiction or chick lit, or maybe people would say some religious stuff. But it's like, but then why? I would like to know why most of that is geared towards women.
yeah,
Oh,
there's
as
definitely
if, well,
sexism
there's,
involved in that too.
yeah. Well, also, but, well, I was trying to think, what's the like male entertainment, whatever, battle tech. That's all. Of which my husband is reading all the books you can possibly say, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this is totally entertainment. I'm entertained. I'm having a fantastic time." And I'm like,
Right.
"Well, why is that bad? He's
Yep.
working like 10-hour days. Why is it bad?" Like,
All right.
that's not fair.
I'm gonna go into my spiel here because I there's nothing wrong with something being either of those, with something being
Yep.
art, with being entertainment, and with something being
Mhm.
simply beautiful, and soul nourishing on its own. Because here's the thing, we need we need beauty, we
Mhm.
need stories, we need, like you're saying, like entertainment, like as a way to, you know, recover when we're having a hard time, to lift
Yeah.
us up. Like these are not frivolous things. I mean, these are a lot of the times like relying on things like this, not relying on it, obviously like these kinds of things give you value, in addition to whatever, taking a walk and having time with your friends and stuff like that. Like,
Mhm.
but that is in that category. Like, that's my
Yeah.
point, is that like entertainment, art, things like that, which I don't really think they're separate things. I think they overlap quite a lot, entertainment
Yeah.
and art. Like, these are things that are nourishing to us, that they are genuinely helpful. Thinking about beauty specifically, like if you have two people that are sick, or they're injured and they're recovering in a hospital, right? And let's say they have, basically they're dealing with the same kind of an issue, and they're in two different parts of a ward. One is in a very ugly area. There's not a lot of sunlight, not a lot of interesting colors. The other is in an area that's brightly lit. There's beautiful, colors and paintings on the wall. The latter will literally heal faster. Like, they will
Mhm.
literally heal faster. It's documented. We know that this is a fact. Like, it's not frivolous to put, joy and beauty in our life. That's kind of the art side of things, and it's not frivolous to tell stories that entertain, because I think that, we've always been doing this, like, since we were whatever, where the hunter gatherer tribe is, after a long day of hard work, what are you going to do? You're going to sit around a campfire, you're going to have a good time, you're going to tell some stories. You're going to tell stories as you're doing your work throughout the day, like you're going to sing songs and stuff like that. That's what we do. Humans, we like to create, we like to
Yeah.
express ourselves and share that with each other. And so anyway, there's my spiel. I don't obviously I'm biased because that's what I do, but
Yeah.
I really don't think it makes any sense to put that down, or to have like a needless tension between those two areas. Like
Mhm.
I have a bias towards entertainment because that's what I like. I do kind of find literary stuff to be a little pretentious. It's not for me, but I still wouldn't put it down. Like, it was not for me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, like, I think, because a lot of people aren't, saying it face to face, that it's easier to put a lot of stuff down
Mm.
online. Duh. Because you can hide behind a fake name and fake everything, and you can say, like, anyone that reads, I don't know, let's just say, Taylor Jenkins Reid, who's like, I don't know. I I think she started as chick lit, but maybe like women's fiction now. But she did Daisy Jones and the Six, fantastic. She did Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Like, there's stuff that it's really freaking good. But oh, like, she started off, writing about marriage. But what's the problem with marriage?
Why? What's the problem with
Yeah.
writing about a part of huge part of life? Like,
Okay. Yeah. So and then it's like, they'll get into a fight about it, but then, she is touching people's hearts, and she's making a lot of money about that. Like, One True Love's 5-star read, cried my eyes out.
you
Fantastic. It was, but it's both art and entertainment, because you could have, like, you
can
could
have
have a
both.
huge freaking, just do a book club and let's talk about every single point and every single chapter. It's that great. But oh, it's not good enough because I guess it's still classified as chick lit, but I'm just gonna say it's women's fiction. Like, come on. And she's a great writer as well.
Mhm.
So I think, and also it depends on what people think of as beautiful and art, and that kind of
Mhm.
goes into just real life as well. Because what is that? I'm gonna probably mess up a little bit, but I love Dita Von Teese. Gorgeous. She's gorgeous. But she said, you could be the ripest peach, but some people don't like peaches. Some people don't like Dita Von Teese. What? Okay, it's not my business. I'm just, but like Dita Von Teese, chef's kiss. But she's not gonna be for some people that don't like, the pinup look. 'Cause that's her look, and more like of a goth pinup look. So already right there, she knows by doing this for decades that she's not a look for a lot of people. That's fine. So it depends also on what you think is beautiful and artsy, and that's gonna change from person to person. Like I'm not going to tell, let's say, Julia Quinn, does the Bridgerton novels, that if she thinks her books, her Regency romance novels are art and entertainment, I'm not going to say, no, it's trash. Actually, it's trash. It can't be art because it's Bridgerton. It's not my problem. It's not my business, is it? I think also there's a lot of people just sharing randomness online where it's like, but is it your business? Is it your business to trash people? I don't really think so. And it's not also your business to say, if someone loves like low fantasy, oh, you need to read epic fantasy because that's actually fantasy.
That's
Low fantasy is not good enough. Like,
but people enjoy things like
yeah. Why
life is
are we fighting?
about that.
Yeah.
It's just like people are getting what they're getting out of it, and if you're not getting that out of it, it's not for you. Like it's just that simple. Like it's not that deep.
Yeah, I really don't think it's that deep. Yeah, like have you read Legends and Lattes? You should.
No, but I'm familiar with it. It's on my list.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
Cozy fantasy.
Mhm.
New subgenre actually. And it's like, I forget. I think it might have been with Adam and Emma where we brought up, it's like the past few years been a little shitty. You know what? And the little zeitgeist is changing a little bit, and especially during COVID where it's like, do I want to read a Game of Thrones series where it's all about death and violence and rape? Like, do I really want to? No, not right now.
Yeah.
I'm about to go bankrupt. Okay, we're gonna read the romance, we're gonna read the cozy mysteries, we're gonna read, oh, there's a new thing, cozy fantasy.
Mhm.
Hell yes. And how popular did he get? Boom. And it's
Nice.
really good.
Yeah.
But the stakes are low, like you're not gonna die, or like people aren't dead surrounded by the main character and there's blood and guts everywhere. It's like, no, she's gonna run a coffee shop. Yes, I'll take it. I love bean water. Like, give me some bean water and some drama about coffee. Like, of course.
In a fantasy setting.
Yeah. But
Mhm.
people just can't. I think a lot of people right now still are, well, they were starting to not be able to handle like the Game of Thrones intense violence because it was what was going on
Right.
for a lot of people in like varying different ways. And
Yes.
now it's like, wait, why do I need to do that? Like, is that really the only fantasy out there? No, it's not.
Mhm.
Just like every other genre, like there are varying levels of horror or mysteries, like cozy mysteries, and like there's culinary cozy mysteries where like you're in a shop, like a bakery, or yeah, it's a bakery, and like a older woman that's single, or maybe dating someone, but she's basically single, and she's baking, and a murder happens down the road, and she's a sleuth and she figures it out on her own, but there's no violence, there's no cursing, there's no blood on the page, but you feel good because the bad guy is gone, like in jail, prison, whatever, and it's going to happen every single time. So it's like a comfort read even though it's about murder.
Yeah.
But how many times have we have not caught the bad guy?
Mhm.
People want that ending now because it's still, things
So
are not resolved. Yeah.
On a similar note, it's slightly different, but related. When
Mhm.
it comes to things like what people want, like what people are actually wanting to go and watch or wanting to go and read versus someone being pretentious and thinking that they should want something else. There's the bringing it to filmmaking again, the issue with Hollywood that we are all very unfortunately aware of, which is that there
Mhm.
are way too many of these movies and shows that are just it's just like propaganda. It's just someone that is trying to they have their own political view or whatever it is, social view, and they're just like trying to aggressively tell you what it is. And it's like no one actually cares. And not only that, but it kind of irritates me because usually usually the people that are doing this have views that are somewhat similar to mine. And
Uh-huh.
so it's like you're actually harming the cause. Like you are making people not want, for example, diversity. Like that's a very obvious one that is just incredibly annoying the way Hollywood's been handling that. And it's like that's turning people off to it. They're seeing a diverse story. Again, this is not terribly intellectual of someone to see that and then assume that it is therefore going to have certain political views.
Mhm.
But that is the association that people are having. And it's like actually what people want is to be entertained. What people want is to feel good. And it's the Barbie movie is a funny example of this because it's like people are making this into a culture war thing, but like but it's only people on the fringes, you know?
Yeah.
But actual normal people go to the movie and they enjoy it and it's fun and it's just like that's what people want. They want to be entertained. They want something that is going to be a distraction from the stress of their life. You can obviously still have something that's heavy and serious like Oppenheimer coming out at the same time, but
Yeah.
but people like more Barbie. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that.
Well, that like also I was watching a video, uh, I don't know the title. The but it was a new channel that I found, Psychology with Dr. Anna, and she was talking about that discourse with Barbie
Mhm.
and how like, oh, why is everyone wearing pink going there? I'm like, because that's like their childhood. And
It's
it's
fun.
yeah, it's usually like we went through all this shit. You know what? Sometimes you want to wear pink and go to see Barbie. Like I don't think it's like as deep as some people would
Yeah.
like. Like I don't like I'm trying to think whenever I see the movie with my neighbors, hopefully soon, because like the spoilers, like we're just like stop it, stop it, stop it.
Mhm.
We're busy, like we're trying to get there. Like, but yeah, I think I have like one or two shirts that are pink. I'm like, yeah, I'll wear pink. Yeah. Like I
Have
don't usually like
fun.
pink. Yeah.
And I brought it
Have,
out and I watched it with my roommate. I was like, "Do you have anything pink?" She's like,
yeah.
"Yeah." I'm like, "All right, we're wearing it." It's so fun. Like everyone there is dressed up and it's just like it's a fun cultural phenomenon to be a part of. That's it. It's just and
Yeah.
it's such a celebration. It's such a like just joy feast, like
Yeah, well, and also like the weird backlash of Margot Robbie being Barbie, and like she looks like Barbie. Like I don't what
she's
because
perfect.
because it's really because she's beautiful and she's successful because she's blonde and blue eyed, and that's what Barbie
Guess what
looks like.
Barbie looks like.
That's
And see, they didn't mess that one up. You can
yeah
imagine a situation where this movie was made, had different producers or something, and they're like, "Okay, we're gonna change Barbie, and we're gonna make this a diverse story." It's like Barbie's already diverse though. Like
yeah
something
Barbie's already there, and then
right.
the people
So
that
they
was
did right.
yeah, or like I guess Ken acts out or something. I haven't seen that movie, but like he acts out, kind of is a little of an antagonist, and they were
Yeah.
like, well, Ken is important. He's like her other half. I'm like, well, they didn't get married, and they're not married, and
Mhm.
also it's about Barbie and the male dolls are actually kind of on the side, and they kind of always have been.
Mhm. And
Sorry
just
to say that,
it's
but it's
commentary about that though
it.
too. It
Yeah,
see, that's an example of a movie that is on the surface fun entertainment. Like you can just enjoy it for what it is, but it also is surprisingly deep too under the
yeah,
surface. It has a lot going on. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, they didn't like that he was, like, the side dude, but I'm like, he's always been Ken specifically has always been the
It's
side
a very strange thing to.
guy. I don't so I'm sorry, like, have you been paying attention? Because like, you
You know
say,
what? I've ignored it mostly every time I've dipped into the discourse over it, I find it to be just
silly.
purely asinine, stupid.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't give a fuck. So I'm just gonna
Yeah,
sorry, maybe I can't say that on your channel. But
it's fine.
I just bat out because it's I mean, literally just pure stupidity. There's one. I'm not gonna say the name just because I'll be nice. But it was a it was like I can't even think about it without laughing. It was well, maybe I won't discuss. Let's just say someone was very strangely interpreting the movie, like ways that I'm like, that is not at all what this movie's about. That's fine that you're taking it that way. Go ahead. Like, just that's incorrect. But I'm glad that it was open to interpretation that someone could yeah have almost the opposite of what I think is intended by the filmmakers based on what they said in interviews. But anyway, um,
Yeah. Well, they were I think, Ryan Gosling's a great Ken.
he's
That was the first discourse, "He's not Ken." I'm like, "Okay, it's a doll, one thing." But also, he looks like Ken, except though, Ken has a little bit of reddish hair, right?
mhm.
I don't even remember, yeah. I don't know where my Barbies went. I was a American Girl dolls, Bratz, then Barbies.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
He kind of
I
went
still
backwards.
yeah, I have 4 American Girl dolls.
Oh, wow, cool.
And I had almost all the Bratz, and I just had some, like a few Barbies. But I had a Barbie house that was made for me. So, does that make sense? No. But like I think the American Girl doll historical aspect where they had the books connected to like that was
I
my thing because
love
yeah,
them. I was
yeah.
super into American Girl. Which ones did you have? Which characters?
I have Kaya, Josefina, um, Samantha,
Mm.
and Kit.
Oh, Kit was my favorite.
Yeah. And I really wanted Felicity, but then they discontinued her. And I'm like, I cried. I cried for so long. And I don't but they made a pretty successful movie out of Felicity too. So that made no sense to me that you then discontinued Felicity.
Yeah, I don't
Uh,
know what's going on with that brand. It seems like they're
yeah.
doing weird stuff, but
Yeah.
when I was a kid, when
Yeah.
we were kids, like that was a fantastic company. I every time I got the catalog, I was just pouring through it and just like I
Mhm.
wanted everything in there, um,
Yeah.
which I didn't, of course, get,
Yeah.
but because I was not, a rich and spoiled kid, fortunately. But it was just those books in particular were very um they were very influential on me, very impactful in a
Mhm.
very positive way, like, they were
Yeah.
genuinely good stories, like, good like, that was a it was a great example of, like, good representation of, like, good, like
Yeah.
they were girls that were, um I was learning about different things in history, of course, but I think I was able to kind of look up to and admire each of those characters, like, they were all
Mhm.
they weren't perfect, but they were all, like, courageous, that they stood up for what they thought was right. They were trying to make a positive difference in the world around them, and I think yeah, that was very, like, impactful to me as, like, a whatever I was, 8, 9-year-old or so when I was reading those books.
Yeah, my mom and grandmother definitely preferred their American Girl dolls, and so would save up more to get that stuff because they had the historical aspect and all the like a bunch of books out for all of them. So you just you would buy the basic stuff, and then if you could afford it or if you wanted to, then you could just keep going with like the books that worked with the accessories.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was obsessed until like 14.
Mhm.
And then I finally took down my section of the American Girl dolls.
Mhm.
Because I had a huge room, and then they were just kind of like when you walked in, it was just them lining the corner with all their stuff. And then Bratz didn't have really anything except clothes and the Bratz themselves. So that kind of died away after
Mhm.
a while. And then Barbie, I still had the Barbie house for a while and just had I don't even know, I had like maybe 4 Barbies just sitting there.
Yeah.
But it was still fun, um, while it lasted. And I think that when people are talking about Barbie or just like other games in general, other than like American Girl doll, because that's really like um, historical base, so you can't really say it's bad. And
Historical based and get and they have one that's like, is it in the 90s, I think, or 2000s, that's as like
oh
a
yeah,
historical. I was like, "Excuse you,
You-
excuse you." I I'm only 30, like, it was
yeah.
just
Feeling old. Thank you very much. Thank you, American Girl doll.
excuse
But
me, in the 90s, I was well, I guess it was maybe, but well, no, it probably was late 90s, early 2000s. I was playing with your dolls.
yeah, an insult. No, but with Barbie, I never had the uh, situation where I had to, or I felt that I had to look like Barbie because um, my grandparents and my mom talked about this is a doll and it's
Yeah.
not real. You want to talk about anything in particular? It's like, no, I get it. But the problem, like, there are a lot of problems with books and movies and all, and like just social media, whatever. Choose your poison. Is that the parents are not involved and then they
Mm,
get upset, and I'm like, well, like you do have say,
mhm,
and if you buy the Barbie, but you also have to talk about it's not real. You do have a say, and if your 10-year-old gets a smartphone or not,
mm,
you know, there are some things where it's just like it's not the company as the parent. Like, it's
mhm,
not the author, it's the parent. It's not Disney or whatever, it's the parent. Like, if your kid is not, for example, mature enough to watch Pirates of the Caribbean movies, then don't let them watch it because
mhm,
there's violence. Yeah, there, and it's not, we're going with like age appropriateness, and I think people have forgotten age appropriateness.
mm,
And how do you talk to kids, preteens, teenagers
mm,
in a way that is not aggressive. So you're going to push them away and they're going to rebel, but also not like coddling them, as in, like, you can't do anything regarding the internet whatsoever. So
mm,
then, the flip side would that be when they hit 18, what are you expecting? It might even be worse off if you instead have like a family computer that's in the den. Well, then you can see what your child, preteen, whatever, is doing versus, well, they have a Xbox and a PlayStation 4 and a cell phone and a laptop and a tablet in their room. What? Too excessive to balance. You see that with books right now too. But also the authors, what are you doing? I've seen what I grew up with was young adult 13 to 17.
hmm.
Now, for some reason, it's 12 to 18. What?
There's a huge difference between being 12 and 18,
I
yeah.
know. I'm
Yes.
like, no, 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 no. Where,
I mean,
what's
you can
what's
it
the
just
rule
goes back to,
here?
like, the idea of targeting, like, you can have something where you're targeting a certain age range, and you can accept that there are gonna be people that will read it that are younger and that are older, but,
Yeah.
like, you need to know what you're aiming for. Like, 12 to
Mhm.
18 doesn't tell me anything.
No.
13 to 17 is still pretty broad, but, like, that's still I'm like, "Okay, that's high school," that kinda gives me a somewhat meaningful, but 12, you may not even have hit puberty yet, like,
No.
18, you're about to, you're legally an adult in, the United States anyway, and it's
Yeah.
like, it's hugely different.
Yeah, and it's not even just indie writers. It's also trad. But it must be like who's changed it to 12 to 18? I'd love to know. But then there's also like indie writers. My One of my friends, I don't think she's gonna I won't share her name, but she was writing an indie no, not writing. She was reading an indie book and somehow they placed a 19-year-old turning 20 with like graphic sex, and that's somehow young adult.
Oh, just
Why?
write an adult novel.
What? It's an adult novel. It's
Yeah.
not young adult, but all over this person's social media and website and newsletters, I'm a young adult writer. Like, no, you're not. That okay, teen, 19 turns 20, lots of sex,
Yeah, that's still
graphic.
that's
What do
adult.
we? What?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's adult.
and you're not targeting the right people. Also, like the morality of it, or people forgetting that you that's that's lying. Like if a 14-year-old picks that up,
Hmm.
that's not the life that is that 14-year-old, because 19, 20 in college, even if it's
Yes.
like a academy, fantasy academy, whatever it was, you're still that's new adult. Like, but you're saying it's young adult because why again? It's
Yeah,
not.
the
Uh,
difference between, like, a rating, like, if something is PG-13 versus R, that's meaningful and it matters, it's specifically for largely it's to protect kids, like, why we have that, I think. I don't know if that's why that exists, but I think that's why. It's like you don't want a
yeah,
kid to encounter something that they're not developmentally ready for yet.
yeah,
So I think it's, yeah, not appropriate to mislabel things if you have something that is mature. Just need to make sure that the wrong people aren't reading it.
yeah. And then I mean, there's also the argument for those like people like it's 12 to 18 now, where it's like, well, I read Stephen King at 13. I'm like, okay,
That's
well,
fine, but
that's
that doesn't mean it's
different.
adult. That doesn't mean it's for young adults. It just
Yeah,
means that
yeah,
you were an exception to the rule, which is totally fine. Like, you
yeah.
will have people read outside of what they're being targeted for all the time, but you still have to be targeting. Like, you
Hmm.
target and then you will hit.
Yeah,
Oh, it's making it sound violent when it's not violent. You know what I mean? Like, you'll target, but you'll hit other things that aren't the center of the target, and that's fine. But if you don't have a target, you're not really gonna have as much impact.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, it was kind of like and I guess that is where the reviewers for Danu's Curse for, I hate the acronym, S. What is that acronym? The Mark Lawrence thing?
uh,
S
oh,
SPFBO?
Spiffbo,
SPFBO.
the
SPFBO. Where
Spiff.
where they said, oh, it's a young adult. I'm like, oh, it is not. My book is not young adult. Like there is a Beltane um get together. I'm being nice for YouTube. Okay. That should have been where
Some
you're like,
friendly
oh,
time.
yeah, it's a fun time with all the villagers at night, because even they knew don't do it in the daytime. There's kids around. We wait until the nighttime during Beltane, and then we have a fun time. Uh, that should have been like a big clue, but but because Ness is 18, and I was having the hardest time. I'm like, what? No, it's not. What did I write
Mhm.
that said that it was? And like, it doesn't say anywhere that it's young adult or anything like that. And it's like, oh wait, because someone told me now it's 12 to 18 for young adult. It shifted. I'm like,
Yeah, you
oh
can still
shit.
have novels about kids that involve kids with as the main characters, and it's not specifically for kids.
Yeah.
Like a lot of I feel like that's, like, pretty common with historical fiction and with especially
Hmm.
literary fiction, you know? Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna have I'm thinking of the example that comes to mind. I haven't read the book, but I watched the movie, is The Boy with the Striped Pajamas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not for
Yeah.
kids. It's about a kid, but that's
Yeah.
horrifying and not that is not meant so it's like so the same thing should apply for teenagers too, that, like, you could theoretically have teenagers, especially late teenage like, in their late teens as the main character. Red Rising, that would be an example of a book series that I think I used to categorize that as young adult. I used to think it was, but it's not like he does start as a teenager, at the
Mm.
very beginning of the story, but it's specifically adult fiction. Um, the author has confirmed that. Um, so I think there
Yeah.
are some sort of, it's weird because, you know, you're trying to target, but sometimes you're writing a story that is like, might have elements of both. That was the problem. That was the problem I had with my novel. It's like
Yeah.
it really should have been. I should have committed and just made it young adult or just made it adult, just like fit very solidly into one of those categories. But it was like I don't know. I didn't know what I was doing. I kind of I guess I knew what I was doing, but what I was doing wasn't strategic. I was just
Yeah.
doing what I wanted to do, which was to write a story with teenagers that dealt with a lot of teenage issues, but I still wanted it to be adult.
Mhm.
That's probably
Yeah.
not a good idea. It's not something I'll do again. Let's just put it that way. But it's
Yeah.
hard. Some things do genuinely feel like the genuine way to tell a story is it may or may not fit perfectly into one of these, publishing categories, which is annoying.
Yeah. So like a Patriot's Tale, Lily's 17, but that's not young adult because it has nothing to do with her age or coming of age or anything.
Mhm.
Um, Sarah and the Two Foxes is 18, Ness and Daniel's Curse is 18, and now Tessa is 22, right out of college. So that's like automatically not going to work for young adult anyway. But
Mhm.
whenever you hear like teen,
Mhm.
there I think now people are automatically going for young adult, and that's a little weird because I don't know if a lot of people signed up for that, including teenagers. But that has been changed by, and I think the at least what I've noticed, it started with Twilight, where Bella was like late 16, went 17, 18, she graduated high school, immediately got married. So you're like growing up with Bella with a hot vampire, whatever. And it's yeah. And so then the like high schoolers or like maybe even early college students had Twilight. And
Mhm.
so like but we still have adults that are obsessed with Twilight,
Yeah.
and that then a bunch of like rom- uh, fantasy romance or paranormal romance stemmed out of Twilight with like angels. That
Mhm.
was a big one for a little bit. Of course, vampires, like
Oh,
other
that was with me right here. I got this series.
yeah.
And,
Oh yeah,
angels.
yeah, yeah. And so, but it was like it was romance based, but it also
Mhm.
had like other stuff going on type of thing. So you could, if you weren't like totally into romance, it was fine. So it's like an interesting mix in people, and it was late teens, and you grow up. Those readers are growing up with young adult, like Bella marrying basically a 215-year-old vampire, but it's totally okay because he's undead. We're having
He
some
looks
weird.
like he's a teenager, so it's
Yeah, yeah, okay, weird, okay, and then, like, they would often, argue, well, his brain is whatever he was when he got killed in the Civil War or something like that, or influence, I don't even know. Whatever, Edward, I don't like you. But then we have those readers that whatever for whatever reason, just, like, stayed with the young adult romance, and it was Twilight was an outlier,
Mhm.
got really popular, but like it's its own zeitgeist. And then so those like 20 like late 20s, 30-year-old women have now somehow taken over the young adult sphere, and it's creepy. It
yeah,
is.
yeah, because there's been a push for more adult content
Mhm.
in young adult, and it's because it's like these mostly women, as you mentioned, older women that not older women, women in their like 20s and 30s, that are yeah, we're not old.
Yeah.
Women our age that are wanting things that are going to be more satisfying to them, and it's like yeah, but if the characters are 16 and you're wanting there to be more explicit sex, that's weird. If you're
Yep.
35, like that's kind of creepy. Um, what you need is to read more like adult fiction. And
Adult.
there's a lot out there. There's a lot of like adult fiction that
Oh
because
yeah.
sometimes there's sort of a style that young adult has that not all adult
Mhm.
fiction has, but there are like
Oh
overlaps.
yeah.
Like I feel like the Red Rising trilogy I just mentioned is an example of that. Like I mistook it for young adult because it's written in a similar style, but it is an adult fiction series. So you can like things like that exist. Like there
Oh
are,
yeah.
you're definitely you just have to know where to look, I suppose.
Yeah, and also like branch out and like take chances, which I think, you could argue there are a lot of uh, kids our age that grew up that did not, or they either weren't pushed to take chances, or they didn't even like realize they could. And so they like started with Twilight and we just keep going. And
Mm.
so we've had to like a lot of, and also like a lot of writers that started with that, even though like, they think that it's trash now, fine, but you still started with that. And now you're 27 and you're basically writing Twilight, but even more explicit, which Twilight, I reread some parts a long time ago as an adult. I'm like, oh, nope, nope, no, Stephanie Meyer. What is this? What is this wedding scene? Huh? Okay. Like, why are we doing this? It's not particularly fade to black or metaphorical.
And
Like, and they're used to that, and then
Mhm.
they want more because you didn't go into like Regency romance, which is right there, by the way, but you're not taking chances for various reasons. I'm like, you got to spread out as an adult, but there's like the argument for stunted
Mhm.
adulthood, and it does correlate with um, social media as well, not just Twilight. We're not completely bashing Twilight. There's other stuff, but that was like the biggest phenomenon that also branched off with like Angel stuff, and like it was like
Super
paranormal romance.
paranormal romance, exactly. It's interesting, as problematic as 50 Shades of Grey series is, that is what you need more of, like, in the sense of, like, someone was essentially writing a redo of the basic structure of, Twilight, but then they made it very adult. It's like, "Great, do that." That's what some people are going to want. They're gonna say this there's this thing that I enjoyed is that when I was younger, but now I'm older, now I want something more mature. I
Yeah,
never thought I would say something so positive about, but I actually only just watched the first time the first movie in
yeah.
that series. I really didn't like it, but I do
At
think that
least it's
the value.
adult.
Huh?
Yeah, at least it's adult. It's
Right,
for
like, there's
adults.
value in that, like, there's, like and I mean, I enjoyed some aspects of it, but I just, inaccurate BDSM stuff. But anyway,
Yeah,
but it just, like, that is that is what some people want. So it's like, yeah, do more things like that, like,
yeah.
do more of
Like,
the taking the same themes, the same story structure, the same writing style, and then just making it for adults, which I think is kind of where I'm at right now as a writer and as like the novelist side of me. I think that's probably going forward. The kind of stuff that I will write is like more adult, more mature, and I'm going to age up my characters because I don't want it to be creepy. Um,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, and also um, like a lot of people choose like either their really difficult time to write out stuff or like their happiest time, and like one or the other. It's going to be teenager. But
Mm,
that doesn't mean that's appropriate. Like,
yeah.
hello, like, and also like, yes, yeah, teens curse and they
Mm,
get into physical fights and they do drugs and they do all that stuff. But uh, I think earlier young adult books wrote that more age appropriately,
mm,
versus now, where in I think in many ways you're glamorizing or
mm,
romanticizing doing
yeah.
a bunch of drugs and drinking and driving, for example. And it's like,
Deadly.
no, like the younger adult, like the early younger adult novels showed that, but what happened what is not good. Just because maybe you got away with it 3 times, the 4th time, yeah, you're screwed, and don't do that
Mm,
because drinking driving is not good.
mm.
Like, and we did go with the,
Especially when you're a young driver, that's the
oh,
most
yeah,
first
yeah,
time.
yeah, and, like, um, I know there's, like, a lot of schools don't handle the drinking and driving, correctly,
Mm.
or, like, parents don't talk about it at all, or, they don't let their kids out at all. Like, it's two extremes. We need to go in the middle, and that was kind of what, uh, early on young adult was doing, but now we're at more of, an extreme, like, but the other extreme where it's more, conservative is, like, the Christian, young adult, and, like, that's the, you can't go out at all. Yeah, you have a 7 p.m. curfew for your own good, right? Well, 7 p.m. curfew, what are you doing? Like, you can't even go to Chipotle. I wanna go to Chipotle at 16 with my friends. But and then you have, like, the other aspect where it's like, yeah, that's totally, just drink and drive, and every single time nothing happens, and it's perfectly acceptable, and also let's do some, harder drugs as well, and no side effects, none whatsoever. Hmm, okay, not realistic, but
Hmm.
and that could be, like um they're doing it that writer's doing that on purpose for whatever reason morally. I don't know what that would be, or like they have no idea what hard drugs plus alcohol plus a car would do, and that would be like, oh, maybe you probably shouldn't be writing that for young adults because young adults also don't know. And if you're gearing that towards adults, then it's like a very specific adult that kind of has been like coddled or
Mm.
sheltered in
That
some
like
way or
takes
another.
from their fiction, right?
Yeah. So it's like, what are we doing here? I don't know, but yeah, my friend that read that, weird 19-year-old young adult, whatever novel was like, yeah, I have to read not so much the middle grade, because middle grade's pretty good. I
Mm.
don't know what happened with young adults, other than the reasons that we talked about. But yeah, when her kids get to be like 13, she's like, I'm still probably not going to give them young adult books. I'm still going to keep them at middle grade because I have to read every single book now. And it's like, well, yeah, it shouldn't be like that. But yeah, it because I've recently read some free young adult books. I'm like, what is this?
Mm.
There's like fuck on every other word or every other page. It used to
No
be
shit.
like one fuck and like a
Most
400-page novel.
PG-13 rules. I think the PG-13 rules are a good,
Mhm.
a good metric for a young adult. Like, if this was R, maybe it shouldn't be there. Maybe you wanna write an adult novel.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, they're very open with the genital jokes. If I say the other words for that, I don't know, we probably would get reported. But they're like, if I can't say it on YouTube, then why is it for a kid? Not a kid,
well,
but a young
I
adult?
guess
Isn't
the
that a
counter
little
argument is that if it's realistic, if it's what kids are experiencing or dealing with, then it might feel disingenuous or not that they couldn't relate to it if it's, like, too far in the other direction too. Like, if it's too filtered, it may not feel real for some readers, because, teens still deal with a lot of dark and heavy shit, of course, but it's like, I don't know, I feel like it also depends on the age. It's like
yeah,
there's that having such a big range is difficult because there are things that are different if you're 13 or 14 versus if you're 18, 19. Like you are developmentally different. Like you've grown more, your brain's developed more. So yeah,
yeah,
it's a weird category.
yeah, age range is weird. But I know they're trying to go for like upper young adult, which would be like 16, 17. I guess that's
That
like
makes sense. If you were to have two
that
young adult
makes,
ranges, I
yeah,
would be support of that.
yeah, I'll be good with that. Because then like a few scatter around curse words and like fade to black or like metaphorical sex is fine, okay. Um, which what it was like more metaphorical in the beginning. Or it was like, oh, they go in. Well, no, that's fade to black. Where they go into the room and then they shut the door.
Mhm.
That's a fade. No, that is a shut door scene. There's so many terms I don't even know, but they were doing like it was not. You're not gonna show it other than maybe, oh, we're taking off your clothes. That's it. And so you have to fill in the blank as a teenager. Uh, but yeah, it's getting more and more explicit with a lot of stuff. And yes, that is definitely real life.
Mhm.
Um,
I
but
had
yeah,
the
I think half it would probably be better. Upper young adult makes more sense than pushing a 13-year-old with 17 uh like a 17-year-old in a relationship, like they're about to, go to prom or they're at prom, whatever, like the 13-year-old doesn't get it.
Yeah, there's a difference. Like, I'm thinking back to, you know, myself at 13 versus myself at 18.
Yeah.
Completely different people, like,
Oh yeah.
completely vastly different. Like, I would have been interested in different things. I would have read different
Mhm.
kinds of books. I was thinking about different things on a day-to-day basis. Like, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. I actually probably need to go soon.
Oh yeah, we're gonna wrap it up, with the young adult controversy because we're so controversial.
I know.
That's how we started. That's how we're gonna end.
Bring it full circle.
Yes, we know how to do that. Yeah.
Quick
Well,
question about that, by the way.
uh-huh.
Are you planning to write any young like, any actual young adult, or are you thinking are you basically just an adult author?
I know I'm just adult.
Yeah.
Not
It's
really.
funny that it's young adult stuff that brought us together and
I
that
know.
and that we've talked about so much in this conversation and that, like, it was such a form of controversy, but neither of us is in that space, which is, like,
Yeah,
probably
because
a good thing. You're right.
well, I when I started BookTube, I was reading some young adult
Yeah, I still
on
like to read
occasion.
it occasionally.
Yeah,
I think less and less.
yeah.
I think because it does have an appeal, like, beyond just teen years, like, it was definitely something I enjoyed during my 20s, and that's probably why I wrote that book that's, like, it
Mhm.
still has young adult elements, but
Yeah,
I think I'm basically over that now, like, I've
yeah. No.
outgrown it, I think, like, it is the things I was getting out of it, I don't anymore, yeah, so, fully just an adult writer
Yeah,
who yeah, I've got 1 PG-13, 1 R-rated,
yeah.
screenplay sitting next to me.
Yeah, I was actually reading when I was, like, running a tutoring center way, like, 5 or 6 years ago. I was reading more middle grade and young adult,
Yeah.
and that's when I had the BookTube channel and all that stuff, so it overlapped, but, and I was reading it because age appropriateness, I was seeing that it was not gonna work out, and when you like, as a, person, like a employee of a tutoring center, yeah, you can't just randomly throw out recommendations because you have an array of parents,
Mhm.
and are you gonna put that on your shoulder? No. Like, don't.
Yeah,
Like, so you
no.
have to, like, really but I knew, like, the middle grade was not gonna be a problem, but it was always a problem when it was, like, a teenager, and they were getting
Mhm.
excited to read, and I was like, "Okay, how about these books?" And they're like, "It's middle grade." I'm like, "Dang it." I have to, like, pull out a bunch of young adult stuff because I know your mom and dad, and
Mhm.
they know, like, they're not gonna want you to read, like, half of these books, so I'm gonna have to do some a little more extra digging because I was the one that everyone went to for book recommendations because I read so much
Yeah.
just like across everywhere.
Mm.
So that's when I started seeing the problems, and that was like 2019, which was getting more difficult. Um, and then like I left Twitter on in 2020. And so then like I don't read young adult unless I get it at the little library, which that's how I found the other two young adult books for free. And I was like, ah, nah. I could not recommend those books to any of the teenagers
Mhm.
at the tutoring center, not just because of their parents, but it wouldn't have been relatable to me thinking back with all those teenagers, they would not have liked it.
Hmm.
And that's where it's like, that's a little disconcerting because I had to know every single student. We didn't have a whole bunch, but we had a good bunch of students of all ages. And it was like, this is interesting shift. And now that's shifted to 12 to 18 for young adult, whatever. And I'm like, what's going on here? Because, we came together with the Blood Air, which it does read young adult. So that at least is there. It has really hard topics, but it handles it in a young adult space.
Yeah.
But that was from like 2018, and that trilogy is done and all that stuff. I don't know where she is now because I don't read young adult, but at least that was like, well, it's age appropriate.
Oh, I want to give a side note, like
Yeah.
on the example of, I'm going to pull another book off of my shelf. So this series is a great example.
Oh
This
yeah.
is adult fiction. The characters are technically teenagers. They're in their like late teens. I think they're like 17, 18, something like that.
Yeah.
And it's a great example of how that works. Like, there's no moment when you're reading this when you think you're reading a young adult novel. Like, it is the style of it, the maturity of it. Well, I say the maturity of it, but like the fact that the main characters are so young and kind of immature is part of the charm of the story. Part of what makes it funny. Like the the main character is always making your mama kind of jokes. It's like they're really young, but they're also characters that have had to like grow up very fast because of whatever their traumas and stuff. So it makes them, anyway, just as an example, like it can be done, but they're going to have to be older, probably older, like
late teen.
Stories.
Yeah. Well, that's the same for the Poppy Wars trilogy.
Yeah, I haven't read that one yet, but I've heard that that's the case.
Yeah, I think, when does she start out? She starts really young and like she goes through an academy and then graduates and then war happens. And then like the author on Twitter, before the first book came out, was like, yeah, so just letting everyone know, this is not young adult. This is full on adult. Do not give this to your young adult readers. Okay. Like, there's a lot of content warnings. It's like, just because she's young doesn't mean. And then people flipped out and said like she's insulting young, like the category of young adult, and she's like, no,
I remember that. I'm sure I remember that happening.
Yeah. Oh, and now I'm seeing the news feed of them like freaking out over this, and I'm like, really? Yeah, I don't. Okay, I'm gonna leave now. I'm gonna go touch some grass. And, and
I did that recently. I was like, this would be a funny thing if I was on social media to take a picture of this and then actually post it of me. I'm just like sitting on the ground, just feeling the grass right now. This is nice. It's kind of itchy. I don't really like how grass feels, but anyway.
Yeah, and then like that author is hugely popular, so like I think it's just like this, like a loud young adult writer. I don't know, like it was like that book Twitter, specifically young adult book Twitter, that went after her. But there are more adults that are buying adult books, so she's fine. Like it didn't really affect her that much, but like, come on. She's telling you the ideal reader. I appreciate that. Yeah. I appreciate that. Like if someone's like, this is book Bigfoot erotica, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna ever read that, but thank you for telling me, because I'm not your ideal reader.
Right.
And there are some like erotica writers that are not fully sharing that it is erotica, and that's not okay. For example, like especially erotica. Why would you do that? I don't. Because I want more sales. There is so many erotica readers. You don't need to lie. You don't. And even with the Bigfoot erotica, you would think not, but there is.
Sometimes being very specific is like
it's a niche. We're gonna end on the Bigfoot erotica because
I think that's a perfect.
I'm gonna laugh for 5 minutes after this conversation. Uh, so thank you so much, Brianna, for joining me today and all her information, uh, mainly her website and her newsletter, because we
Yeah,
talked about
that's
that.
the main one to follow me on.
Yeah, it's going to be in the description box below. And we'll probably bring you back on. But as of September, this is coming out in September. Duh, y'all are watching in September. Sorry. We planned this a month before. But I'm going to have to take a little break of Interview with the Fox because one, deployment, not me, husband, deployment. And then it's the holidays. Like, is really people really interested? I don't know. But it could also be me, Brianna, going, um, I'm lonely and I'm bored. Please talk to me for episode 5, 6. I don't know, Brianna, help me. So you might see her again very fast. I don't know. We'll work it
Sounds good.
out. Yeah, we'll figure it out. You know how life goes. It's a journey, people.
Right.
This Interview with the Fox, whatever it is a journey. But we'll see you in the next one whenever that comes out. And thank you again, Brianna. And
Thanks for
everyone,
having me.
yes, buttercups. Have a great rest of your day, night, week, month. You know how it is here. And also, just go touch grass.
Yeah,
We're gonna do that.
go to
Bye.
Bye.